So my name is Brian Rankin. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm Vice President, Senior Deputy General Counsel for Comcast Corporation, which means I'm in-house counsel and focus on legal regulatory issues, mostly issues dealing with government, regulation, litigation, compliance. Yeah, so we have a team that I oversee is of 15 people, attorneys and non-attorney regulatory professionals. And we also work very closely with a lot of outside law firms and consultants. So our extended team is a lot bigger than actually just our in-house team, which isn't really all that big. And so our day will be involved in advocacy before international or national or state or local regulatory authorities. Advocating for Comcast's positions in whatever proceedings or matters are before those bodies. We'll manage litigation, maybe where there's a challenge to a particular order that was issued. So we'll manage that litigation on behalf of the company. We negotiate a lot of contracts. There are contracts that are sort of in the regulated space, right? There are parts of the industry that are regulated where there are statutes or government orders that govern those contracts. And so those are the kinds of things we do. Like, for example, Comcast is a provider here in Tuscaloosa. And so we'll have a franchise with the city of Tuscaloosa. It'd be our team that would work with our government affairs colleagues to negotiate that and then help with compliance after it's in place. So I grew up in Virden, Illinois, which is a town of 3,500 people in south central Illinois. It's about 25 miles south of Springfield. And it is just a small farm community. And when I grew up there, there were operating coal mines still around the area. So it was very blue collar, a lot of farmers, miners. My dad was a mailman, and he was a rural letter carrier. He delivered the mail to the farmers who lived outside of our hometown. My dad drove the same 84 miles, 6 days a week for 35 years. And when you hear the saying about neither rain nor sleet nor snow, that was my dad. It didn't matter what the weather was, whether it was snow or ice, it didn't matter. Dad got in that car and he went out and he delivered the mail. And that's what a lot of people were like in my hometown. They went and did their jobs. They got on with it. And it was a town filled with some really good role models like that. Of people who were serious about their lives. They were good people and they worked hard and they tried to provide what they could for their families. But being a small town in a rural area, there's only so much opportunity. And for people who maybe have ambitions that you want to practice law for big companies or do things like that, there's not a lot there that's going to keep you there. And I think that's a challenge, probably not just for my small town, but for small towns throughout the country, including Alabama. So the path that led me onto college, law school, and MBA, I think it really begins just in childhood with my interests being expansive. I was always interested in the greater world and international issues. I was always interested in going to other countries. I was always interested in business and big companies and interested in national politics. There was just a lot of big interests that I had that were bigger than life in my little town. And so college was sort of a natural place for me to go. Now, my high school was a community high school, so be my hometown. There was a real town of about 800 people a few miles away, and then the farm communities all came into our school. We had about 90 in my graduating class, a handful of us, and went to college. So there wasn't a big ecosystem of support or people who might be able to give me direction on where to go. I went to Illinois State University. I applied to one school. I got in, and that's where I went. It turned out to be a great choice. I had a great experience, but I couldn't tell you today why I chose Illinois State over, say, maybe University of Illinois or somewhere else. I don't know. I had an informed decision-making process, but it worked out. And I had a great experience, and I was able to study the kinds of things I'd always been interested in. Right? I was able to study the world and take geopolitical classes and international relations classes, and to really expand my mind into the things I was most interested in. And I started thinking then about, well, what kind of career do I want to have? And I thought about maybe going to get a PhD in political science or history or a law practice. And I ended up settling on the law practice. And it was sort of, there was a practical decisions. I thought, more employable. You'd have really good options, whether that be law firm or companies or government. There would just be, and then a variety of kinds of law to practice. So it just seemed like a good path for me. And so I went to law school. I did a little more considered search for a law school than I did for undergrad. And I ended up choosing DePaul University in Chicago. So I moved to a city of 3 million people, having come from a hometown of 3,500. So that was a little change, but that was also part of my education. That was a great experience for me, learning how to live in a big city. So that was a wonderful part of it. And DePaul was a really good experience. I mean, law school's not easy. You have to work really hard. You have to be very disciplined to get through it. And it was a good school for me to go to. And I think one of the reasons is DePaul's law campus is in the Loop, so it's right downtown. And that puts it close to all the courthouses, the federal and state courthouses, all the law firms that are centered there, the community service organizations. So there's all kinds of opportunities to be a law clerk or intern. And so I was able to law clerk with a couple of firms. So while I was in law school. So that was really a nice experience there. And then I started practice. I got a job with a telecom company called MCI. Some people might remember that. And worked there for several years, and then had a couple other moves in the late 90s when the tech boom was going on, and there was just all kinds of opportunity. Worked for a wireless company in Chicago for a short time, then moved to another telecom company, and that company relocated me to Nashville. And it was when I was in Nashville, I really got serious thinking about I wanted to get an MBA. Something I'd thought about for years. And I just got to the point of life where I just said, this is something I really want to do. So I sort of drew a circle around Nashville, like where's schools I'm interested in that have a good program. And I saw the Alabama EMBA program and liked it and came here to visit. And from the moment I set foot on this campus, I felt welcomed. I felt like this was a place that wanted me. And that made just all the difference in the world. There was another option or two I could have done that wouldn't have been a 3+ hour drive from Nashville, but this was the right choice. And it was a great experience. And I learned so much that it's made me a better in-house corporate attorney. Because when you're in-house as a lawyer, you're a lawyer, but you also wear a business hat. And so now, because I have an MBA, I read financial statements differently. I read spreadsheets differently. I understand the concepts of EBITDA and these things differently, how their importance to the business. I understand marketing plans better. And it makes me a better lawyer because the more I can understand about the business and its really key principles and the key ways that we make money and generate revenue, the better I can understand the legal regulatory environment that I'm responsible for working in and how that impacts the business. And because after all, everything we do is to make our business as successful as we can be. So the MBA turned out not just to be something I enjoyed, which I wanted to do for the intellectual reasons of enjoying it and exercising my brain and learning, but just the practical hands-on benefits of that learning that has translated into my career. And it was a great decision to get an MBA, and even better decision to come to Alabama to do it. Yeah, I did have some feelings of hardship and struggle and question about whether I belong. And I think there was a few reasons for that. I mean, one, first generation. My parents didn't go to college, and I think they had a feeling that they were of a certain sort of place in society, and they occupied that place, and that going to college isn't something either one of them would have occurred to them. That was a possibility for them. And so I didn't grow up in a family or an environment where many people went to college, that it was natural for people to go and pursue careers like that. It was more the exception than the rule. So I sort of started from that point. And then when I got to Illinois State for undergrad, I'm from a small rural school, first generation, and I find myself there with many students who come from the Chicago area, some of the big suburban high schools where they've got swimming pools and French clubs, and they could have taken Latin and all these things. And I'm hearing this and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You had a swimming pool at your school? I mean, it was also foreign to me. And plus they would come and they would know a lot of kids at school because there were already kids from their school at Illinois State. And I might have known one or two from my hometown who was there. So my environment there was different. I also I wasn't prepared for college when I got there. And this isn't because of where I went to school. This is probably more about me, because when I was in high school, I just didn't really apply myself the way I should. And so I get to college and I don't know how to apply myself. I had to learn how to be a student. I had to learn how to study. So I had to learn how to prove myself. And when I got there, I didn't know what a GPA was. So you can imagine what the freshman GPA was for somebody who didn't know what a GPA was. It wasn't very good. I had a lot to prove. And there was questions in my mind, like, do I belong with these folks? Am I as good as they are? And over time, not quitting, staying with it, it's great because one success can lead to another, and you start to prove to yourself that you can do that work, that you do belong, that you're just as smart, you're just as capable. But it took that time there at school for me to do that, and for me to learn that and understand it. And I think it's something that when you begin life with that, I've never really lost it. I mean, I've always had this sort of feeling of, do I really belong there with them? I gotta prove that I do. I've never lost that feeling. Maybe some people do, maybe some others don't. I haven't, and it's just been something that stayed with me, and has given me some level of motivation to always want to keep striving and keep achieving, and to be recognized for what I can contribute and what my real achievements are. So here's how I set my goals, and here's how I stay with them and try to hold myself accountable for them. I sort of start with thinking about goals in a certain way, like sort of a standard definition of a goal is it's something to be achieved, right? It's defined, something to be achieved. I like to think about goals a little bit differently. I think of a goal as a promise I make to myself. And a person with integrity and character is careful about the promises that they make. They think about them. They think about them carefully. But when they make them, they're committed to them. It's a real promise. And so when I make a promise, I start with a big promise. I'm going to be a lawyer, for example. And then I think about what are the promises or sub-goals I have to achieve to fulfill that ultimate promise. And right, that's okay, I need to get whatever grade point average in certain courses. I need to get a certain score on the LSAT. And then when I get to law school, I want to get the following grades in the following courses, take certain courses. So you build these sub-promises up to your larger promise. And you have to really think, though, about, okay, that sounds good, but how do I actually get there? What's the real mechanism for getting there? And I fall back to a quote by Aristotle, which is, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So you have to have the right habits in place. The habits that are, I'm going to block out whatever time I need to block out every day to study, write my papers, do my reading, prepare for my test, whatever it is that is, I've got to have the right study habits in place that allow me to execute and fulfill the goals and promises I have set for myself. So every single day, I am thinking about my habits for that day. It might be nice, yeah, I like to think of myself, I'm in good shape, I work out, but if the reality is I don't get up early in the morning, get my workout in, and then have a nice breakfast and go put in a good day at work, if in fact I'm sleeping till the last minute and then jumping in the shower, rushing to catch the bus to get into the office, well, I may want to think of myself as a person who's in great shape and working out, but the reality is my habits aren't that. What I'm repeatedly doing is the opposite of that. And so I try to be very intentional about the habits I create to lead to the promises that I'm making to myself. And I don't make a lot of promises to myself. And I think that's also important. You want to be focused. You want, when you make that promise to yourself, it's got to be something that really matters to you, that will make a difference to your life. And so that's how I approach goal setting, goal achieving. I think about them as a promise I make to myself, and a promise that I will do all the steps needed to fulfill that promise. So I think the accomplishment in my career that I just feel the best about is that I've been able to become a leader of a team. And by being that, I've been able to help others develop and grow and achieve the things they want to achieve and have the careers that they want to have. And that to me is what's the most enriching thing. It's about the relationships that you build at work, and the ability to sit down with somebody and talk to them about what are their hopes and what are their dreams and what do they want to make their career be for themselves and for their families. And then to be able to help them chart a course where they own it, they have to be responsible for it, but to be able to help maybe open a couple of doors, provide some mentorship and some guidance throughout the process, and to watch people grow, especially if you have somebody who's maybe new in their career, they're maybe not fully confident yet, not sure what they want to do, and to watch them develop and blossom into the professional that they really were destined to become. That's the biggest accomplishment that I think I've ever had and probably ever could have.
That's really great. It must be such a an honor when you see someone who is not necessarily they always take your advice, but they kind of, you nudge them in certain ways and they go down that road, and then they're able to blossom from that. That's got to be that's an accomplishment you share with that.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I one of the great things that I've enjoyed is I still stay in touch with people that I worked with 30 years ago, which is wonderful, right? Because it's these long-term relationships. And that makes you also know that in some way, me and that other person, we connected, we touched each other. And now we want to continue to be in contact and continue to have relationship. That's really meaningful. So what I wish I knew when I was a first generation student going to college is one is that it's okay to sort of slow down and take a breath and not be in a hurry. That things that seem like really, really big decisions over the next few years in the course of your life may not be really, really big decisions. That you should have confidence in your abilities. You should know what your talents and your intelligence is, and you should just apply it. You shouldn't be afraid to apply it. Don't hold back because you doubt whether you're good enough or not. It doesn't matter what other people think, And don't compare yourself to other people. Just compare yourself to yourself. Understand who you are, what you have to offer, and go offer it. And as you do that, you'll grow, you'll have successes, and they'll build on one upon another and upon another. But I think it's just really that, be yourself. Have confidence in the intelligence and talent and ability that you possess. If you couldn't make it at Alabama, you wouldn't be here, right? The university accepted you to be here because the university thinks you'll succeed. So you should too. And just go, be yourself, do the work, and you'll have success. I think just sort of one insider thing I would share is I think life is long, and it's a marathon, and you stay with it. Don't quit. Keep going. You're going to have ups and downs. Everybody's life does. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. But you've got to just put your mistakes behind you. You've got to keep going forward. Don't give up. Don't quit. And the successes will come. And they will build one on another. I think as I look back at my career, there are things I did I wish I hadn't done. There are things I didn't do I wish I had done. But if I look at the whole picture of it, it's worked out. It's a good career. It's been great. And it continues to be. And I think by and large, there were moments maybe I could have quit, tried something else, but I didn't. And because I didn't, I feel like now I'm in a place where I feel good about who I am, how my career has gone, and what I have.